Welcome back to Blank M. Today's file, 7 weapons so effective, they didn't just win wars. Some of them ended empires, and one of them was so dangerous, its own creators erased the instructions on how to make it. In the year 678, a fleet of ships sailed toward Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. The attackers were confident. They had numbers, momentum, and nothing to fear from a city they assumed was already beaten. Then the Byzantines opened fire. Not arrows. Fire itself, a liquid flame sprayed from tubes mounted on their ships, a flame that stuck to wood, to sails, to skin, and could not be put out with water. The enemy fleet burned on the open sea. The Byzantines called it sea fire. History calls it Greek fire. And to this day, nobody fully knows how to make it, because the empire that invented it made absolutely sure the recipe died with them. That's just one of 7. In this file, we're covering the deadliest weapons of the ancient world, the ones that didn't just win battles, but ended wars, and in some cases, changed the fate of entire civilizations. Let's finish opening this file properly. Greek fire was first deployed by the Byzantines in 678, credited to a refugee engineer named Kallinikos, who is said to have brought the formula with him fleeing a Syrian city. What we do know, it was a liquid, likely built on a base of crude oil or naphtha, possibly mixed with sulfur, pine resin, or quicklime. It was pumped through bronze tubes, essentially the world's first flamethrowers, and it clung to whatever it touched. Enemy sailors couldn't scrape it off, couldn't drown it, couldn't outrun it. For scale, modern flamethrowers, the ones used in 20th century warfare, work on roughly the same core principle. A sticky, self-sustaining fuel that keeps burning after contact. The Byzantines figured this out over 1,000 years earlier, using bronze pipes and bellows instead of pressurized tanks. The secret was guarded so tightly that only the emperor and a handful of trusted engineers ever knew the full formula, passed down generation to generation, never written in full. When the Byzantine Empire finally fell to the Ottomans in 1453, the last people who knew the real recipe died with it. Historians have partial descriptions, educated guesses, chemical theories, but no one has ever fully reconstructed it. Some historians argue Greek fire is one of the biggest reasons the Byzantine Empire survived as long as it did, repelling siege after siege when it should have fallen centuries earlier. A weapon so effective, it may have single-handedly extended the life of an empire, and nobody today can build another one. Not every weapon on this list was mysterious. Some just worked over and over for hundreds of years. The Roman Gladius was a short sword, typically 60 to 85 centimeters long, deliberately shorter than the long slashing swords used by many of Rome's enemies. That might sound like a disadvantage. It wasn't. The Gladius was built for stabbing, not slashing, and in the tight, disciplined shield wall formations Roman legions fought in, a short stabbing blade was devastating at close range, where longer swords had no room to swing. Rome didn't just design a sword, they designed an entire fighting system around it. Legionaries drilled with the gladius constantly, trained to thrust rather than hack, aiming for gaps in armor rather than wild swings. It's estimated the gladius, combined with Roman battlefield discipline, helped Rome conquer and hold a territory stretching from Britain to the edge of Persia, an empire that, at its height, covered roughly 2 million square miles. The gladius didn't end a single war. It won hundreds of them, one legion at a time, for nearly 500 years. While Rome perfected close-range killing, empires across the steppes of Central Asia perfected killing from a distance nobody could match. The composite bow was built from layers of wood, horn, and sinew glued together under tension, a construction method that let it store far more energy than a simple wooden longbow of the same size, while staying small enough to fire from horseback. That combination, power and portability, is what made mounted horse archers like the Mongols so devastating. A Mongol horse archer could fire accurately at a full gallop, at ranges up to roughly 350 meters, faster than most contemporary armies could even close the distance to fight back. For scale, that's nearly the length of 3.5 football fields. And Mongol armies could sustain that kind of fire while retreating, advancing, or circling an enemy formation, a tactic that repeatedly shattered heavier, slower European and Chinese armies who had no equivalent mobile firepower. The composite bow didn't just win battles for the Mongol Empire. It's a major reason a nomadic population with a fraction of the manpower of its rivals was able to build the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Some weapons won wars by killing people. This one won wars by making walls stop mattering. The counterweight Trebuchet, refined in medieval Europe and the Middle East, could hurl stones weighing over 100 kilograms, roughly the weight of a small motorcycle, distances of up to 300 meters, using nothing but gravity and a massive counterweight swinging down to launch the payload. Before the Trebuchet, a fortified city with strong walls could hold out for months or years. After the Trebuchet, walls became a question of physics, not willpower. Sustained bombardment could reduce stone fortifications that had stood for centuries into rubble. Trebuchets were also used for something darker, hurling diseased animal carcasses, or worse, over city walls during sieges, an early and gruesome form of biological warfare, most infamously recorded during the Siege of Kaffa in 1346, an event some historians connect to the spread of the Black Death into Europe. A machine built entirely from wood, rope, and a counterweight didn't just break fortifications. It broke the entire logic of medieval defense. Not every weapon on this list is a machine. Some are just better metal. Damascus steel, used for blades across the Middle East from roughly the 3rd century onward, was famous for a combination that shouldn't have been possible with medieval metallurgy. Blades that were simultaneously harder, sharper, and more flexible than contemporary European steel, some reportedly capable of cutting through lesser blades without damage. The steel had a distinctive rippling, wave-like pattern, and it was made using wood steel imported from India and Sri Lanka, processed using techniques that are, like Greek fire, no longer fully understood. The original production method was lost by roughly the 18th century, and modern metallurgists still debate exactly what gave true Damascus steel its properties. Some theories point to trace impurities, like carbon nanotubes forming naturally in the smelting process, which is a genuinely wild idea for a medieval workshop to have stumbled into by accident. Crusader accounts describe Damascus blades slicing through European swords in single strikes. Whether every account is exaggerated or not, the fear those blades generated was real enough to shape how European soldiers approached battle with Middle Eastern armies for centuries. Sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't something you build. It's something you weaponize. War elephants were used from India to the Mediterranean, and their psychological impact might have mattered as much as their physical power. A single war elephant could weigh several tons, comparable to a loaded delivery truck, capable of trampling infantry lines, and, just as importantly, terrifying horses that had never encountered anything like it, causing entire cavalry units to break formation before a single blow landed. The most famous use came from Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general who marched war elephants across the Alps into Roman Italy in 218 BC. A logistical feat so audacious that Rome, the dominant military power of the Mediterranean, was caught almost completely off guard. War elephants weren't perfect weapons. They could panic under sustained pressure and trample their own side just as easily as the enemy. But for a period of ancient warfare, showing up with elephants meant showing up with a weapon your enemy had no reliable answer for, and that psychological edge alone won engagements before they fully began. Last in the file, but historically first in a very different sense, because this is where gunpowder warfare actually begins. The fire lance emerged in China around the 10th century, a bamboo or metal tube packed with gunpowder and shrapnel, mounted on a spear and aimed at an enemy at close range. Essentially a one-shot, handheld flamethrower crossed with a primitive gun. It wasn't precise. It wasn't reusable in the way later firearms would be, but it was the direct ancestor of every gun that came after it. The first time gunpowder's explosive force was weaponized as a directed, handheld weapon rather than just a bomb or a rocket. Every rifle, every cannon, every firearm used in the centuries since traces its lineage back to Chinese engineers strapping an explosive tube to a spear over 1,000 years ago. It's easy to overlook the fire lance next to something as dramatic as Greek fire or a Mongol war bow. But of everything on this list, it's arguably the one that changed warfare permanently, for everyone, forever. 7 weapons. Some built empires. Some ended them. One of them, we still can't fully rebuild, even with everything modern chemistry knows. What's strange, looking back across all 7, is how little of it comes down to raw destruction. The Gladius won through discipline, not size. The Composite Bow won through mobility, not brute force. Greek fire won partly through fear itself, an empire that survived as much on reputation as on flame. The deadliest weapon in the ancient world was rarely just the weapon. It was what an army was willing to build, guard, or risk everything to keep secret. File closed. But it never really is it? Somewhere out there, another ancient mystery is sitting in a museum drawer, waiting for someone to ask the right question. If you're the type who needs to know how the small details quietly decided the biggest wars in history, this is where you stay. Subscribe and keep the investigation going. Blank M, stay tuned.